Thank you, Reverend Blair. It's always good to be reminded of, I consider Paramahansa one of the world's spiritual leaders, and, from right here for decades, he was an Encinitas at the temple there. Pretty amazing guy. I know people that have moved from other places, when they get here, they say, oh my gosh, there's an energy here. Can you hear him? County. And part of that energy is here with us today. And so it is my privilege to welcome one of our congregants, who is also, as you know, one of the three candidates for the future of this ministry, to serve this ministry as senior minister. I know she's got a great talk planned. Please join me in welcoming Reverend Robyn.
Welcome. Thank you.
There you go.
Okay. On the left or the right?
Left.
The left?
Yeah.
Okay. Boy. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
It's great to be back. I've missed you. And I want to thank Reverend Blair and the music team for that request, that song. That's one of my favorite songs, and he learned that just for us today. So, yeah, thank you. So a wise person once said, if all people are created in the image and likeness of God, then why aren't we all, like, invisible? Good question, right? Because that invisible, invincible, omnipresence, power, and knowing needs us to be the hands, the feet, the heart of God in this world. And I love all the songs and the music today that just remind us of that. So we come to community here on Sunday to remember this truth of who and what we truly are as beloved creations of a loving Creator. We come to celebrate, to connect, to align with divine mind, to reawaken and call forth that inner Christ. So it's the loudest voice in our heads. Because sometimes other voices can get pretty loud, right? Which reminds me of the parable of the pit. One day, a man fell into a pit and couldn't get himself out. And a group of people came around him. And an empathetic person said, I feel for you down there. An analytical person looked around at the group and said, it's logical that someone would fall into that pit. A stern teacher leaned down and said, if you would have listened to me, you wouldn't be in that pit. The geologist told him to appreciate and study the rock strata down there. The scientist was busy calculating the pressure, pounds and ounces, to get him out of the pit. The evolutionist said, you will die in that pit, so you can't produce any more pit-falling offspring. The guru said, your pit is only a state of mind. The county inspector came by with his clipboard and said, did you get a permit to dig that pit? A narcissist said, you haven't seen anything till you've seen my pit. The optimist shrugged and said, oh, things could get worse. The pessimist said, things are going to get worse. But Jesus stepped forward, saw the man in the pit, leaned down, took his hand, and pulled him out of the pit. So I love this story because we can look at it in many ways. And one way is to see that when we're in the pits, if we stay there too long, all kinds of unhelpful thoughts can gather, right? That blame, analyze, rationalize. So we know we have these spiritual tools to get out of the pit. And the good news is that at any time we can summon that Christ power, presence, that is love, self-compassion, faith, wisdom, to lift us up. We know that, right? That our freedom is one thought away. We can also reach out to community, because sometimes we forget we have those tools, right? So we can reach out to our spiritual community to help us hold the light, or to hold the light for us and with us, to be our partners in believing. So today we're talking about the power of community. And I have to say that sitting there's an energy in this room today that is very vibrant and high. And so I'm already feeling the power of this community today. It's that essence that you bring and that is woven in this time together. So community is more than a group of people who are gathered. If we look at that word, community, it means with unity, like communion, common union. So a group of people with a shared purpose, belief, direction, values. So how has sacred community blessed your life? Who can remember the first time they stepped into a spiritual community and felt like they were home? A few, yeah. Okay, we'll go right. So sometimes I think about, there was a before and after picture of me when I found Unity and New Thought. And the before picture kind of looked like this, that I was looking for love and belonging in all the wrong places. And I lived in North County at the time. And my religion was Church of the Electric Slide. I could probably still do it. But it was more than a hobby. It was looking for something there. And, I enjoyed the music. I met people. I had friends. I think there was alcohol involved. But friends in low places. But still, I was living with a lot of fear and not really growing spiritually and very self-absorbed, having a lot of fun. But there was this ache for something more. Something was missing. And have you ever experienced that? Have felt that ache and tried to fill it with other things. Distraction, drama, addictions, shopping, food, scrolling Facebook, all kinds of things, trying to fill that God-sized hole that only that common union will fill. Well, luckily, my sister was attending a New Thought church in San Diego, and she invited me. I remember it was Christmas, and we were singing Christmas carols, a Christmas service. And instantly, I felt like I was home. I just walked in and felt embraced by the warmth and love of that community. That was my start. There's more to the story, but we'll get to that at another time. But kind of like this community, when I moved here about a year ago and I walked in and I went, oh, this feels, there's love here. There is love made visible here. So we need each other. We need each other. The Monk on the Mountain. It's been a popular spiritual vision or conception, and that's what I thought I had to do and give up my dancing boots. And while it's good to get away, necessary to get away, get apart for a while, pray, meditate, do that inner work, we remember Jesus, who would go up the mountain to pray by himself, and metaphysically the mountain is a high place of consciousness. I like the scene where he was speaking to a crowd and he got in a boat and went out to the lake by himself, like, see you later. Going out to the lake to pray by myself. He had to get away from everyone, even his disciples, and he loved them. So it's good to get apart to commune. But he always came back. He always came back down the mountain to his community. He knew that we need each other, that we all have a deep human need to be loved, included, accepted, to belong to something greater than ourselves. Paul Bourne is a writer who writes about deepening in community, and in his book, Finding Joy Together in Chaotic Times, he says, community has the capacity to improve our physical, mental, and economic health, as well as our overall sense of happiness and fulfillment. Have you found that to be true? There's a general upliftment when we lift up in one area of our lives. Other areas lift up as well. He says it has the power to unite us in a common bond as we work together for a better world. So in community, we expand our vision of a we. Keep including. And know that we don't have to think alike to love alike. So in spiritual community, we are blessed because we can hold that sacred container for each other to explore, to grow, to stretch, to support each other, to see greater possibilities. So community is encouraging. It also has the power to heal. We all have that basic need to be seen, heard, and understood. And it's been said that being listened to is so close to being loved that most people can't tell the difference. And when deep listening is offered, something magnetic and transformative happens. And if you've been on either side of that, you know the power of that. When someone just listens, or when you've held space to listen. Has anybody experienced that? Yeah, very powerful. Well, Dr. Christine Hibbard tells a story of the power of deep listening and community. When she and a group of healers went to New Zealand, and they were invited to the sacred community of the Maori or Maori people. And she asked the community's physician what type of medicine he used for the various illnesses on the island. And his reply was, and it startled her, that we use no medicine. None at all. And he explained that when a person was ill from a cold to cancer, they would gather, the whole community would gather, including the children, and they would place the ailing person in the middle, and then they would all sit. And they would sit for days while the ailing person would just reveal and get it all out about what they had been holding on to and holding back. And guess what percentage of success rate for healing was reported? 98%. 98%. Very different from our perception of health in the Western world, right? But body, mind, and spirit all connected. And we also know that God works through doctors, God works through medicine as well. And in this community, imagine being part of a community that had the value, a commonly held value, that each person had their own intrinsic wisdom, guidance, and trusted their own power of self-expression to heal what needed to be healed. So, if we think about it, speaking the truth from the intellect, speaking the truth from the heart, and knowing the interconnectedness of that, the power of that. Thinking of unity, our power centers in the mind, in the heart, and what's between the throat with the power to voice. So community has the power to hold sacred space for miracles to happen. And this is a special kind of listening. Everyone needs to be heard. And this is a special kind of listening, being present with each other without analyzing, trying to fix, or giving advice. That's hard, isn't it? Because we want to be helpful, when we're listening, like, ooh, I have a good idea. And if the person asks for advice, that's something else. But to hold the space of trusting that person's inner wisdom and inner spirit, the resiliency of their inner spirit, to reveal what needs to be revealed, and heal what needs to be healed. There's power in that. So this is a gift. This deep listening is a gift that we can give each other in community. And as you may have noticed, it ripples out, doesn't it, into our families, the way we relate to our families, what we learn here in spiritual community, it ripples out. Just naturally, without even trying. So think about your life. And who in your life could you offer this gift of deep listening to? I think that was from a Unity Church website where I got that. And I love the joy on people's faces with that. So deep listening. And as well as deep listening, another crucial element in community is the ability to forgive. We're human. We will blunder, stumble, step on each other's toes. Misunderstandings happen. So forgiveness. Forgiving ourselves for not being all things to all people. and forgiving others for not being all things to us. Have you ever had someone else as your God that they should know, they should read my mind? They should know I want that or don't want that. So we can ask ourselves, who do I need to forgive for not being God? Henry Nouwen is one of my favorite spiritual authors, and he notes that community is not possible without the willingness to forgive each other 70 times 7, in other words, continuously. Forgiveness holds us together through the good and the bad times, and it allows us to grow in mutual love. So forgiveness sets us free to stay in the we instead of building that wall. To reach out, connect. Community invites us to live wholeheartedly with the willingness to be vulnerable and communicate our thoughts and feelings. That takes a lot of courage, doesn't it? I like this from George Bernard Shaw. He said the biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it has actually happened. The community gives us the opportunity, doesn't it, to become more self-aware, to tell ourselves the truth, and to speak our truth with others in clear and connecting ways, to stay in the we, and when necessary, to let go and forgive. And this builds spiritual resiliency, our ability to bounce back after loss or disappointment. So that's one of the themes for the year is courage, isn't it? Having the courage. Abundance takes courage to go beyond what we've known. I like this from the Course in Miracles. Would you be a hostage to the ego or a host to God? Hostage to the ego. Has anyone else felt that? Wow. I like that Charles Fillmore said that, it's not about getting rid of the ego. He called it the spiritualized ego. So spirit's in charge and ego follows along. Because that's an important part of us, our personality, our unique expression as individualized expressions of the one, of God, of the divine. So community offers doorways to experiencing the sacred and expanding our capacity to love, to serve, to remember God in ourselves, God in each other, God in the world. Paul used the metaphor of the body to show importance of spiritual community, the unity of Christ in one body. He said, you are all the body of Christ, and each one of you is a part of it. From 1 Corinthians 12:25, so that there should be no division in the body, but that its parts should have equal concern for each other. If one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it. And doesn't that speak to our oneness? Our oneness, that we feel it on some level. Things that happen in the world, we feel it on some level. Whether it's heartbreaking or joyful. And so our work is to remember who and what we are, and to express that as much as we are willing and able. So I'm going to close with a story that I read about the other day about this woman at the Los Angeles International Airport. And she observed that there was this very pregnant mother chasing her toddler around, and the toddler was just having a fit. He was running, kicking, screaming, and she was trying to catch him to pick him up so they could board the flight. And so she'd get him, then he'd wiggle out and fall on the floor and kick. And after a while, the mother just sat, slumped to the ground next to her screaming child, put her hands in her face in her hands, and started sobbing. And then something magical happened. That a group of women surrounded, about 6 or 7 women surrounded the mother and the child. And one woman pulled out an orange from her purse and peeled it and offered it. Another woman sang Itsy Bitsy Spider to the little boy. Another one pulled out a toy from her bag and offered it. Another one gave the woman a bottle of water and filled up the little boy's sippy cup. And so they were able, this group was able to help the mother and the child calm down. And the mother and child boarded their flight. And afterwards, the women went back to their seats without a word. They didn't know each other. It was an instant community of love that saw a need and came to surround this mother and be that expression of love and compassion. Community. We were made in the image and likeness of the one who gives life, to be the hands, the feet, the heart of love in this world. The visible edition. Thank you. Thank you. Good job. Thank you.